I want to welcome everyone to our live Saturday morning presentation. We're going to be looking at vaccine effectiveness and vitamin D. And when we talk about vaccine effectiveness, we're talking about the effectiveness of the current vaccines in helping to prevent COVID-19. You'll see an image here on the screen. It says, "Are vaccines effective for COVID-19?" ? If you're interested in that video, that's a video that I just recently put up about 2 weeks ago, maybe less than that. And you can go to YouTube. You can find that video on my channel. You can in the search bar for YouTube, you can put in Dan Hammer Health, and you'll see all my videos, and you'll see that video if you're interested in looking at it. The information I'm going to share with you today is information that's in that video. Now, there's a lot of opinion regarding the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccines, and that really came to light with this whole thing about Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, and so I like Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers got COVID-19. People in the media feel that he misled people when he was asked the question whether he was vaccinated or not. Irregardless, him getting COVID-19 and then his interview with Pat McAfee really created a firestorm of opinions with regards to this whole aspect about people being unvaccinated versus people who are vaccinated. So if you're interested in actually listening to the full interview that he had with Pat McAfee, the PDF that I'm showing you, I'm going to give you access to on the Tuesday's newsletter, but you can click on that link. It'll take you to this. It's a 47-minute interview, but it is an eye-opening interview because it's more than just COVID-19. It's about his process, how he came to make the decision that he felt that the vaccine program was not right for him, and that his medical advisors that he worked with felt that he really needed to boost his immune system and let his immune system do the work for him. And in that process, he really talks about all the things that he went through as an unvaccinated NFL player. And he was tested every day before he would go into the facility. He would get his COVID-19 test. He would have to go back into his car, and he would have to wait in his car until he got the results of the COVID test, and he had to do that every day. So it's really interesting listening to the interview and all the things that he went through. But this whole firestorm that was created about Aaron Rodgers not being vaccinated and then getting COVID-19, it really prompted me to do a search with regards to the current COVID-19 vaccines and whether they're effective in preventing a person from getting this viral infection. So that led me to a YouTube video. So when I began to do the search, it led me to this YouTube video from the Los Angeles Times. And the title for this is "Study Shows Dramatic Decline in Effectiveness of All Three COVID-19 Vaccines Over Time." Now, this is the LA Times. This is not a conservative newspaper at all. And to see them actually put up this article, and as you can see, it's had almost 2 million views since November the 8th when it was put up. And it's not been taken down. And the reason why it's not been taken down is because they cite a study, an accurate study, this one here, out of Science magazine. This study is from, what's the date of this study? I think it was November. Let's see, what's the date? November the 4th. So this is this month of this year. This study came out. The title of the study is "SARS-CoV-2 Vaccine Protection and Deaths Among U.S. Veterans During 2021. Now, I'm not going to go through all the study, but what I want to do is, and again, I give you links to these studies so that you'll have access to them so that you can watch them or read them in greater detail. So like most viruses, they mutate. In fact, the stock market yesterday had a big downturn because of this mutated variant that's coming out of South Africa. Again, viruses mutate. We're not going to get into the reasons why they mutate, but the vaccines that were created in the beginning were created for the alpha variant of COVID-19, which has since mutated into the Delta variant. And it's the Delta variant that has become the dominant strain across the United States. So this study in Science was conducted by the Veterans Health Administration on approximately 780,000 veterans, or what would represent about 2.7% of the US population. And they looked at infection rates from March of this year, 2021, through the end of September of this year, 2021. So this is really current information. Here's the results. Moderna's 2-dose COVID-19 vaccine had an effective rate of 89% in March of 2021. That dropped to only a 58% effective rate by the end of September. The Pfizer and BioNTech are both 2-dose COVID-19 vaccines. Their effective rate in March of this year was 87%. Both of them fell to 45% by the end of September 2021. And then the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine had an effective rate of 86% in March of this year, but dropped to just 13% by the end of September of this year. Now, those are the three major, or I should say 4 major vaccines that are available worldwide. The Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson are the 3 ones that are used here in the United States. So you can see that at March of this year, for the veterans who came in to the VA hospitals, all the vaccines were in the mid 85% or higher. So 86, 87, and 89% effective in helping people not get COVID-19. By the end of September, all of them were reduced in their effectiveness. Moderna's down to 58%, Pfizer down to 45%, Johnson & Johnson down to just 13%. So the authors had some conclusions regarding to this, and I'm not going to read their whole conclusion that they came to, but I do want to highlight some things that are in here. Again, you'll have access to this information through the links that are provided in this PDF. So the first one is, in summary, although vaccination remains protective against SARS-CoV-2 infection, protection waned as the Delta variant emerged in the US, and this decline did not differ by age. So it doesn't matter what your age is, the effectiveness of the vaccine decreased across all age categories. Secondly, for the authors of this study, importantly, vaccination still provided protection against death in infected persons, and this benefit was observed for the Moderna, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Janssen vaccines during the Delta surge. And then vaccines should be accompanied by additional measures for both vaccinated and unvaccinated persons, including masking, hand washing, and physical distancing. So as you can see by their conclusions, the authors of the study believe that getting vaccinated is still the best method to protect you from the COVID-19 virus and its mutations. I'm not here in this presentation to tell people to get vaccinated, and I'm not here to tell people not to get vaccinated. What I'm here to do is give people accurate information that is current so people can make the decisions that are best for them. I will be making a recommendation when I come to the end of this presentation about an area that I think everyone should do, no matter whether you're vaccinated or not, and that's coming. So as you can see by their data, the effectiveness of these vaccines have decreased as the COVID-19 virus has mutated. That means that both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals need to maintain, again, according to the authors, masking when around people, hand washing, and physical distancing. Now, personally, for me, I live in Illinois. We don't have mask mandates, except if you go into facilities, it's required that you wear masks. But like, I've been in facilities and some people abide by that, other ones don't. Personally, I put my mask on. And when I'm around people, I try and maintain social distancing. I don't do much with regards to hand washing because that's another topic with regards to hand washing. And I'm a firm believer that your microbiome is determined by bacteria. And so the more that you hand wash, the more that you can affect your microbiome. But that's a different issue. But when I'm around people that I don't know, I try and maintain the physical distancing. And if I go into stores, I put my mask on to be compliant, as well as some level of protection. It's not ideal, but again, if whether you're vaccinated or not, what the authors have shown is that over time, these vaccines have become less effective because the COVID-19 virus is mutated. Now, what are the current numbers from COVID-19? There was just an article that came out 2 days ago. I get Yahoo is my main news feed. So if I go back to this and pull up the Yahoo feed, despite vaccines, the U.S., this is out of the New York Times, despite vaccines, the U.S. has lost more lives to COVID this year than last year. So I pulled out their article. Let me go back here. And comparing last year to this year, so far for this year, there's 386,000 plus deaths. Last year, there were 385,000 deaths. We can argue whether these are accurate numbers or not, but the collection method is the same this year as what it was last year. So although from a science standpoint, you can debate whether they're accurate in what they're collecting, they're using the same methodology. So in that same methodology, the ratios of the numbers would still maintain themselves. And the other thing that they came out with this article is that COVID-19 also accounts for a higher percentage of US deaths this year than it did last year, about 13% compared to 11%. Again, here's the link to the article that if you're interested in looking at it in more depth and detail, you can. The only reason why I bring this up is, again, this is a serious issue, and there's a lot of people who are dying from COVID-19. Now, in the Aaron Rodgers interview, he talked about his decisions for not getting vaccinated. There were some ingredients in the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine that he was allergic to, so he didn't want to take those two. At the time that he was looking at this, Johnson & Johnson had been pulled off of the market because of some health issues. It's since been put back on. And I'm not going to go into all the different side effects that all these different vaccines can potentially have. But for him, that was a problematic aspect to it. So he felt, with consultation with his medical team, and it's nice, we are individuals who don't get the same pay scale as what Aaron Rodgers does. So, he gets paid a lot of money to be the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. So he can afford to have a really nice medical team around him. A lot of us can't do that, but his medical team really felt that he needed to work on boosting his immune system. The interview that he had with Pat McAfee was really eye-opening in terms of some of the things that he was doing to boost his immune system. One thing that caught my attention is that he wanted to make sure that his vitamin D levels were robust. And I've always been a firm believer in vitamin D levels as helping people to lessen their probability or lessen their risk for getting COVID-19. I'll get into a little bit more of this as we go along. But that prompted me to go and do a current Google search to see if vitamin D levels could lessen your risk for getting COVID-19. And I found the following article, March of 2021. So it's a very recent publication. That one is here. The impact of vitamin D levels on COVID-19 infections, systematic review and meta-analysis. So what they did do a study. What they did is they looked at all the studies that have been done on vitamin D and COVID-19. They factored out any studies that had an association with a product. So if there was a study that was done and it was funded or associated with a vitamin D supplement or a vitamin D medication, then they discounted or didn't use that study in their review and meta-analysis. So they were looking at pure research studies that weren't in any way, shape, or form potentially compromised by people having a product that they might want to sell, which would be a vitamin D supplement type of product. So when you look at that, and again, here's the link that I provide you to go directly to that article. Here's some of their stated conclusions. Low serum 25 OH vitamin D level was significantly associated with a higher risk of COVID-19 infection. The limited currently available data suggests that sufficient vitamin D levels in serum is associated with a significantly decreased risk of COVID-19 infection. They then go on to say the following, and I highlight this. This is really important. The pooled estimate showed that subjects who were VDD were 80% more likely to acquire COVID-19 infections. What's the VDD stand for? It means vitamin D deficiency. So that what the authors are saying in their meta-analysis of all the different vitamin D studies that they looked at that met their criteria, that people who were vitamin D deficient were 80% more likely to acquire the COVID-19 infection. And then the authors also made the following statement. This review showed that improving vitamin D status in the general population has a potential benefit in reducing the risk of acquiring COVID-19 infection. So the authors of this study came to the conclusion that people who improve their vitamin D levels reduce their risk of acquiring COVID-19. So of the information I've shared with you so far, what are some of the takeaways? Well, first, getting vaccinated does not completely protect you from COVID-19, but it does reduce your risk and most likely gives you a better outcome. It's important to understand that whether you believe in vaccination or don't believe in vaccination, the data shows that people who do get vaccinated does give them a level of protection, does reduce their risk, does give them a better outcome if they end up getting COVID-19. So they typically have less symptom severity and they have a better outcome. Doesn't mean that people haven't died who've gotten the vaccine, but again, we're looking at risk management here. And so for people who have vitamin D deficiencies, where you're looking at an 80% likelihood of contracting COVID-19, and when I begin to show you some additional information in today's presentation, yeah, if you're vitamin D deficient, then it would most likely make sense for you to go get vaccinated because you're going to improve your ability to not get the COVID-19 virus. And if you do get it, most likely lower your symptom severity and improve your outcome. Secondly, continue to practice masking and social distancing when you're around others, especially if you're not sure of what their status is. You know, I really found, I'm going to take an aside here. I want to go back to the Aaron Rodgers interview. Everyone assumes that Aaron Rodgers got COVID-19 from an unvaccinated person. Understand that Aaron Rodgers was around both unvaccinated and vaccinated players. Before any of the unvaccinated players could go into the facility, every one of them had to go first in the morning, get their COVID-19 test, go back to their car, wait in their car until the results came in. If the results were negative, they would then be able to go into the facility. They would have to mask in the facility. They would have to maintain social distancing. So when they were in their different players' rooms or in the locker room, they had to maintain social distancing. They had to be masked. And the vaccinated players, they only were tested every 2 weeks. So as we see from the information from the big study done with the VA, there's a lot of people who are vaccinated, they're getting COVID-19. And so, you know, where he got it from, no one, I don't think it's been identified, but probability is that he didn't get it from an unvaccinated person in that locker room, because the unvaccinated people were tested every day and then had to mask and do social distancing. So most likely the greatest probability is that he got it from a person who was vaccinated. Anyways, so whether you're vaccinated or not, you need to take steps to boost your immune system. a healthy immune system helps to lower your risk and improve your outcome. So my takeaway from all the information that I've seen from the start of this pandemic through current is that your immune system plays a huge role in helping to protect you, to reduce your risk, and if you do get it, to improve your outcome, less symptom severity, and keep you hopefully out of the hospital, and most importantly, help keep you from dying. So anything that you can do to boost your immune system is helpful. Now, in next year, I'll do a Saturday presentation on multiple ways that you can boost your immune system. But to me, the easiest and most effective way to make a major impact on your immune system is to boost your vitamin D levels in your bloodstream. And this benefits both your innate and adaptive components of your immune system. We'll look at this in just a little bit. But before I do that, it's really important that we get some numbers on vitamin D levels in your bloodstream. When you go and have a blood test done, you don't get vitamin D level information back. You have to specifically ask for it. Like last year, I was really interested to know what my vitamin D levels were. But before the doctor would allow me to have that test done, I had to go see the doctor and go through an interview with him to make sure that he could justify the test with the insurance company. So I had to go through that process. And then once we talked about it, he gave the recommendation for it, and I got my vitamin D levels back. My vitamin D levels were in the, was around 80. So here are the three categories. So when they do a blood test, and you can get blood tests done in other locations, like I'm a subscriber to Life Extension. You know, they offer a blood test done where you can go to a facility, have your blood drawn, have it sent to them. They can give you back the numbers. You know, it's an out-of-pocket expense, but it's not unreasonable in terms of what they charge. Anyways, they're looking at what's called 25 dihydroxychlorosilferol, and normal level would be 30 nanograms per milliliter or higher. So my vitamin D level was 80 nanograms per milliliter. Insufficient would be ranging from 21 to 29% nanograms per milliliter. And a person who's deficient in vitamin D levels would be someone who is 20 nanograms per milliliter or less. Now, the most current study that I could find was a large US population-based study done in 2011. So that was 10 years ago. They found that 42% of adults are vitamin D deficient. That means that at that time, 42% of the adults in America had less than 20 nanograms per milliliter. But when you base this on ethnicity, what they found was that 69% of Hispanics were vitamin D deficient, and 82% of African Americans were vitamin D deficient, which when you look at where the COVID-19 virus has made the greatest impact in terms of infection rates and death rates, you'll find that it happens in the Hispanic and Black communities. Now, so much of that has been based upon what I call politics, that they're in situations where, you know, they don't live in ideal living conditions. That may be a factor, that may have a play in it, but my sense is that it has more to do with their vitamin D levels than anything else. That again, when we come back to the study, and this is March of this year, where they looked at the vitamin D levels in this meta-analysis, as they said, the pooled estimates showed that subjects with very vitamin D deficiency were 80% more likely to acquire COVID-19 infections, which means then that for these communities, Hispanic, 69% vitamin D deficient, African Americans, 82% vitamin D deficient, their probability of getting the COVID-19 is much greater. I mean, when you look at adults at 42% overall, for the African American community, That's almost twice the rate of the rate of potential infection just simply from vitamin D deficiency. Now, I come to the Indonesian study. I give you the link for this study, but that paper has been taken off from publication. There's a lot of reasons why it was taken off from publication, but in that study, it was an eye-opener when that study was up there. What they did is a small sample. Again, this is not a scientific study. This is a sampling size of 780 cases. And what they found was the following. When they looked at the people that they sampled, 780 cases, 50% of them had normal vitamin D levels, 27% had insufficient, and 23% had deficient. When they looked at the death rates that were involved in the people who had COVID-19, those that had normal levels of vitamin D had a 4% death rate, which meant that 4 people out of 100 died from the disease. But when you got to insufficiency, it was 88% and deficiency was 99%. So 88 people out of 100 died if you were insufficient in your vitamin D levels, and 99 people out of 100 died if you were deficient. So again, this study's been taken off. You can't get to it anymore, but that spoke volumes in terms of people who were insufficient or deficient in their vitamin D levels. Basically, if you got COVID-19, it was pretty much a death warrant. And when you compare that to people who had normal vitamin D levels, yes, death still occurs, but at a significantly less. It's like night and day between the two of them. 4% versus 88 or 90% is like turning the light switch on and off. It's just remarkable difference between the two. So when we look at the immune system, let me decrease this a little bit. I'll do a broader study of this sometime in January. But when you look at the immune system, there's basically 2 parts to your immune system. There's what they call the innate immune system, and then there's the adaptive immune system. So your innate immune system helps protect you from common things that have been in the environment for a long period of time. Your adaptive immune system is what your body uses to build the antibodies when the body finds something new that attacks it. So the COVID-19 virus is something that your immune system has not seen before. And when it comes into your system, your innate immune system is not prepared for it because it's never seen it before. So your adaptive immune system needs to get engaged so that it can begin to create the antibodies necessary to contain the virus so that the virus doesn't spread rapidly throughout the body. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of components to both the innate immune system and there's a lot of components to the adaptive immune system. All those components depend upon communication. And the way that a virus works in the system is a virus works to cause miscommunication in the immune system so that the immune system doesn't see the virus as harmful. And because of that, then the immune system doesn't engage the adaptive part to ramp up and create the necessary antibodies to kill that virus. And what happens then is the virus is able to replicate and continue to gain a foothold where it can continue to grow and expand in the host, in this case, if you've got COVID-19, you. And then finally, your adaptive immune system recognizes that there's a threat, but the virus is ramped up to such an extent that your symptom severity is increased to such a point that you reach a place where your adaptive immune system cannot mobilize fast enough to be able to counteract the progression of the virus. And so, if you can't do that, then that virus continues to progress and typically leads to a person's death. Or a person can maybe catch up and they have to go through a long period of really intense medical procedures to help keep them alive until their immune system can finally ramp up large enough so that it can be able to help them get back, most likely never back to normal, but at least get out of the hospital. So why is vitamin D so important? And the reason why vitamin D is so important is because it works on helping to maintain communication within your immune system, communication between the components in the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system, as well as communication between both the innate and adaptive. So all the communication factors that go on here, I mean, it's simply amazing the amount of crosstalk that goes on here. And I don't know, maybe to put this in the context of something that we can understand would be like if you had a group of 20 different people in a text, and you now started to all text together, communicating information through text to all 20 people, where in live response time, you can see what everyone's saying and addressing a problem and being able to mobilize forces to be able to contain that problem. So that's what vitamin D does in the immune system. It helps to maintain good communication between all components of the immune system, so that when a virus comes in that your body's never seen before, it can't cause miscommunication. That the immune system maintains good communication, recognizes that this is something new, that this is not good for the body, and begin to mobilize the adaptive immune system to create the necessary components to stop the progression of that virus and create the antibodies to be able to kill that virus and get it out of your system. And then the other thing that happens is once your adaptive immune system has created the antibodies for that particular virus, if you get that virus again, doesn't mean that you won't get sick. As we've seen from the COVID-19 vaccines, it doesn't mean that you won't get sick again. It doesn't mean that you're completely protected from the virus, but it does mean that the vaccine has allowed your adaptive immune system to create some antibodies so that if you do get COVID-19 again, symptom severity is a whole lot less and you have a much better positive outcome than what you would have if you weren't vaccinated. So if a person gets COVID-19, again, they've got the adaptive immune system that has created those antibodies to be able to recognize that if they get COVID again, then those antibodies can go to work. They can quickly ramp up because it already has the knowledge stored in the adaptive immune system to be able to ramp up quickly to handle that so that your symptom severity is a whole lot less. Now, if you're going to be a believer in vitamin D, like I'm a believer in vitamin D, then it's important to know how much you should be taking on a daily basis. The information I'm showing you here is from the Cleveland Clinic, one of the most respected health organizations here in the United States. I would say the Cleveland Clinic is now even more respected than what, say, some of the other historically ones are. So when you look at this is a table taken directly from them. You'll notice that I have highlighted in yellow what our age category. So people who are between 9 and 70 years of age, what the government recommends for you is 600 to 800 international units on a daily basis. As you can see from the Cleveland Clinic, they feel that's woefully inadequate. They would recommend that people would take 4,000 international units on a daily basis. Again, I provide you with a direct link to the Cleveland Clinic study, or article, I should say. So if you're going to be a person who believes that vitamin D levels are important for your overall health, especially for the health of your immune system, to help you decrease your risk for COVID-19 does not mean that you won't get COVID-19, but it does mean that you can reduce your risk for COVID-19, improve your symptom severity, and improve your outcome. Again, it does not mean that you won't die from COVID-19, but it does show that you will reduce your risk from dying from COVID-19. So according to the Cleveland Clinic, people should be consuming about 4,000 international units on a daily basis. So whether you use supplementation, whether you use food sourcing, whatever you might be doing, you really need to look at whatever you're taking into your system through supplements or food sourcing, because you're not going to get this level from sunlight, because most people cover their bodies. We live in an age where you need to wear sunscreen to protect you from the sun so that you don't get skin cancer. You know, I was in a conversation with an individual in this last week with regards to, I take walks outside, so I should be getting enough vitamin D levels. Well, I'm sorry, your face doesn't convert enough. If you're getting sunlight on your face and that's the only part of your body that's getting sunlight, it's just not going to work. You really need to do something to make sure that your vitamin D levels are in the proper place. First place to do that is get a blood test. If you don't know what your vitamin D levels are, get a blood test so that you know what the vitamin D levels are. Then you can gauge how much intake of vitamin D that you should be doing on a daily basis to get your vitamin D levels up to the level that you want to maintain them. So I'm a believer that I would opt for the upper level intake. I make sure that I get at least 4,000 international units of vitamin D on a daily basis. And I'm not going to go into how I do that. That's the time for another presentation. But that's what I have to share with you this morning with regards to this whole thing with vaccine effectiveness and vitamin D. Do I have any questions from anyone? You're all muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself and I can take your questions.
Hello, Dan.
Yes, Dr. Brooks.
Yeah, there's one or two things. One of the things that it didn't have anything to do with, there's two enzymes basically that you can use to help break down the protein coating on the virus so that the immune system can attack it.
Okay.
And one of them is serrapeptase.
Sure. Okay.
And nattokinase.
Okay.
And both of those are strong anti-inflammatories, but nattokinase is more related to blood clots and to help dissolve the blood clots. And then serrapeptase helps break down the protein coating or any non-living tissue, such as scar tissue or anything. And they're both strong anti-inflammatories. And they will, most people that die of the COVID situation is usually due to the endothelium getting really inflamed and damaged, and then the blood clot setting in. So those two things could definitely help out if you do get COVID.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else with any questions or comments before we say goodbye? All right, then I want to thank you for your time today. Next Saturday, Judy Feldhausen will be doing the presentation. She'll be looking at the new product line from Synergy Worldwide for the skincare called Lamara. And I have no idea what that product line looks like, but we're going to get a good presentation from Judy. So that will help you all next Saturday. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Thanksgiving Day weekend. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. And thank you for being on today's presentation. Bye-bye now.